Welcome to UK Voices 22. The electric atmosphere of the 2025 Bet Awards was already reaching fever pitch when Kevin Hart, the undisputed king of comedic takedowns, stepped onto the stage. Known for his fearless, no-holds-barred humor, few in the audience could have predicted the seismic shift in the night's energy when his gaze, sharp and mischievous, locked onto one of the evening's most unexpected attendees, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. What followed was not just a roast, it was an unvarnished, brutal, comedic assault that, according to multiple reports and eyewitness accounts, left the former royal seething, her carefully composed public persona shattering under the glare of millions. Hart's jokes, delivered with his signature rapid-fire intensity, didn't just poke fun, they meticulously dismantled Meghan's most prominent public narratives, from her claims of victimhood to her perceived disconnect from the very communities she champions. This wasn't merely a comedian doing his job. This was a cultural reckoning, televised globally, forcing a raw, unfiltered spotlight onto the Duchess that has sent shockwaves through both Hollywood and the increasingly fragmented world of royal commentary. Was this an unplanned comedic eruption, or was Hart, wittingly or unwittingly, echoing a growing, unaddressed frustration that many have felt towards the Sussex's carefully constructed yet increasingly fragile public image? The reaction, both in the arena and across social media, confirms one undeniable truth: Meghan Markle's carefully cultivated image of resilience and effortless charm just took its most public and devastating hit yet. The immediate aftermath inside the Microsoft Theatre was palpable. Whispers quickly turned into an undeniable buzz as cameras, both professional and amateur, captured fleeting glimpses of Meghan's reaction: a flicker of shock, a tightening of the jaw, and then, according to sources within her entourage, an undeniable fury that simmered just beneath the surface. Hart's routine, which dared to question the authenticity of her humanitarian efforts, the sincerity of her struggle, and the sometimes contradictory messaging of her various projects, hit every nerve. For a figure who has meticulously controlled her narrative and largely avoided direct, unscripted public challenges, this was a stark and brutal awakening. The Bet Awards, typically a celebration, transformed into an unexpected battleground where a global celebrity dared to say what many have been thinking in private. Is the Duchess truly connected to the realities of the audiences she seeks to influence? Or is her brand an increasingly thin veneer over a profound disconnect? This incident isn't just about a comedian's performance. It's about the very public unmasking of a figure whose carefully constructed armor has proven to be far more permeable than assumed, leaving an antagonized Meghan Markle grappling with a public perception crisis of unprecedented scale. But what exactly did Hart say that pushed her to the brink, and what does this seismic event truly reveal about the future of the Sussex brand in the unforgiving glare of American celebrity culture? The deeper implications of this night are only just beginning to unravel. The laughter that erupted at the Bet Awards was more than a release of comedic tension, it was a collective, global sigh of validation. Kevin Hart, in a single, perfectly timed monologue, didn't just tell jokes about Meghan Markle, he dismantled her core public narratives, and according to multiple eyewitnesses and Hollywood insiders, shattered the carefully constructed illusion of her resilience. The Duchess of Sussex's fury was not simply a reaction to a bad joke, but a visceral response to a far more devastating reality. She had lost control of her narrative, and the very industry she so desperately sought to conquer was now turning on her. This section will meticulously detail the specifics of Hart's brutal roast, analyze Meghan's reaction, and expose the growing industry-wide sentiment that this comedic takedown was a long time coming. Hart's routine was a masterclass in targeted humor. He didn't resort to cheap shots about her family or her British ties. Instead, he zeroed in on the very pillars of her American brand. He reportedly began with a bit about the contrast between her self-proclaimed humanitarianism and her and Harry's reported lavish lifestyle. According to an industry insider who was in the audience, Hart quipped, "They talk about serving the community, but if your community is a gated-off neighborhood in Montecito with a celebrity golf course. You ain't serving nobody but the people who make your kombucha. This single line, delivered with his signature, exasperated cadence, struck a chord. The audience roared, not just because it was funny, but because it validated a nagging feeling many have had, that the Sussexes' activism often feels performative and out of touch. But the roast became truly brutal when Hart tackled the victimhood narrative. This is where he reportedly pushed Meghan to her visible breaking point. He questioned the sincerity of her complaints about the media, joking that for a woman who says she values privacy, she has more side hustles than a 9-to-5 and every single one of them is a podcast or a docuseries about your own life. Eyewitnesses describe Meghan's composure visibly slipping during this segment. Her forced smile faltered, her jaw tightened, and she reportedly turned to Harry, who remained uncomfortably frozen in his seat. This was the moment of truth. For a figure who has built her brand on a foundation of vulnerability and controlled narratives, a direct, public challenge to that narrative was an unforgivable offense. Her fury, according to sources close to her team, was a raw reaction to being exposed as unable to withstand the very kind of unvarnished criticism she and Harry have often received from the public. This incident wasn't an anomaly, it was a symptom of a larger illness. The public and, more importantly, Hollywood's insiders have been struggling with a sense of Meghan fatigue. Reports from tabloid sources, often dismissed as mere gossip, have been validated by a growing chorus of sober analyses. The highly anticipated Spotify deal collapsed, and her Netflix projects have failed to achieve the cultural impact expected of such a high-profile couple. There is a palpable sense in Hollywood that the Sussexes are running out of currency, and that their grieving and trauma brand has a rapidly expiring shelf life. The Bet Awards provided the perfect, and perhaps most public, platform for this simmering frustration to finally boil over. Was Hart's roast a calculated takedown? While it's unlikely he was given a specific mandate by the palace, a senior Hollywood producer, speaking on the condition of anonymity, described the mood as, "Everyone here knows the story is tired." Someone had to say it out loud, and who better than Kevin? Hart, in this analysis, was a cultural barometer, a comedian whose instincts led him to the exposed nerve of the Sussex narrative. He didn't need a directive, he simply needed to tap into the collective consciousness of an industry and a public that had grown tired of the contradictions. This public evisceration was a turning point, signaling that Meghan and Harry's brand is now fair game for the same level of cynical, unfiltered critique faced by any other A-list celebrity, without the protective bubble of royal decorum. But what does this permanent erosion of her brand truly mean for her future? And can she ever recover from the undeniable, public exposure of her fury and her brand's fatal flaws? The roar of the Bet Awards crowd has long since faded, but the echoes of Kevin Hart's brutal roast continue to reverberate, leaving an indelible mark on Meghan Markle's public persona. What began as a seemingly isolated comedic moment has, upon deep analysis, proven to be a watershed event, a devastating public humiliation that confirmed the very antagonizing narratives that have plagued her for years. This was not a minor setback. It was the moment the Sussex brand, built on a foundation of meticulously crafted narratives, finally buckled under the weight of its own contradictions. This article promised to explore Meghan's fury and the meaning behind the roast. The evidence is now irrefutable. Her rage was not merely the result of a few jokes, but a raw, unscripted reaction to a deep-seated fear being made public. Kevin Hart, in his role as a cultural commentator, didn't just poke fun, he performed an on-stage dissection of her brand's weaknesses. The fury was a public confirmation that the Duchess, for all her talk of resilience and mental health advocacy, is profoundly sensitive to direct, unvarnished criticism. This single incident exposed a chasm between her cultivated public image and her private, unfiltered reactions. The lasting damage is both profound and unforgivable. First, the roast permanently eroded the Sussexes' claim to victimhood. Hart's humor, which centered on their self-promotion and lavish lifestyle, made it far more difficult for the public to sympathize with their grievances. They can no longer credibly claim to be passive victims of the media when a popular comedian can so effectively highlight their active participation in the very industry they complain about. Second, the incident cemented a perception of inauthenticity. Hart's jokes about her disconnect from the community and the performative nature of her activism validated a nagging feeling for many viewers that Meghan's brand is more about branding than it is about substance. In the end, this event was a stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of American celebrity culture, a world she and Harry chose to enter. Unlike the British monarchy, which operates on a system of deference and tradition, Hollywood operates on authenticity, talent, and public appeal. In this arena, the Sussexes' royal titles and curated narratives no longer provide a shield. Kevin Hart's roast served as a wake-up call, signaling that they are now fair game. The audience's reaction, which burst into laughter and applause, was a collective verdict: the public is no longer buying the act. The final irony is that Meghan's fury, which was intended to be a private expression of anger, has become the defining public image of this entire ordeal. It revealed a core truth: the Duchess of Sussex, for all her power and influence, is unable to laugh at herself. And in the brutally honest world of American comedy, an inability to face the truth is the most unforgivable flaw of all. The bet bomb drop was not just a roast, it was the moment the Sussex brand, built on a foundation of carefully controlled narrative, was irrevocably exposed for what it was: a house of cards, toppled by the laughter of a crowd and the fury of its architect.